start from now. This will be NAOL Season 10, round number 3 review. The first game up is Monsieur Colbert and Sky Chen. I believe this is El Wu and S Chen. We'll start from now.
Review started.
This one looks like it was nail-bitingly close in the end game. Let's see what happened. So far, everything is very basic. Back in the day, this 3-4 used to not be super popular because allowing black to build the framework naturally like this was considered to be really good for black. White would then have to usually step something like this, and black could complete the framework with 9. This would sort of transition to a Kobayashi, but white could often refute that by simply playing this move. Nowadays, this is fine for both. AI says it's not so much of a huge advantage for black, and white can play as white likes. Although this attachment is a little bit rare. Generally, this sort of scam move is usually played when white has some presence at the left-hand side, namely around A. Because one of the main ideas is after black plays something like this and then settles, white would really like to have a stone here already. This would allow white to follow up with something like 6, for example, or maybe here to continue growing. And it works very well when white has a stone on the side. When white doesn't have a stone at the side, usually white has to spend another move here. This would be eliminating the possibility of black getting to a point like c6 in the future, threatening a push and a cut. But I think overall, probably playable. Easier for white would be to simply take the territory and ask if black is going to spend one more step at the bottom. If black plays something, for example, like 4, which would be the normal Joseki move, it's a little bit far from black's stone in the corner, so white can approach one space away a little bit more comfortably, given that the stone is not at the star point. So, just a small detail. And if black goes a little too far to try to maintain balance, then it's going to be easier for white to come into this area later in the game. White can, of course, also develop the left side with a move like 1. This one is also popular. If black simply plays away, it reverts to Kobayashi-type Fuseki, and of course white can approach. So moving forward, block. Sometimes we see this, although usually connecting is more common. When black plays Hane and extend, white is developing towards the left, black is developing towards the bottom. With the block here, black is going to have the option to push and then cut, which we see black do from this side. This cut is setting up a follow-up cut at A, which is something black could think about taking advantage of, although white can answer the extend at 1 and allow black to capture. This way white will take Sente. White instead extends, and black is going after the corner. So here we got a local trait. Black took the corner, white took outside, and black is preventing white from enclosing the top left corner. If white ignores this and approaches, the game should be relatively even. If black gets an even result by Sente in the upper left and encloses the bottom right, this might be slightly better for black. So here we see white pinch. Pincer is possible, but we don't have to be afraid also to give black the left-hand side. White already has a very strong group here, so the value of the left-hand side is getting down. If something like this, white can take the Sente and approach the other corner, everything should stay in balance. Okay, black is choosing counter pincer. It's playable. But again, I think black can prioritize enclosure here. Even if white jumps, this would be trying to increase the value at the left-hand side. For example, white could play something like A next to seal, or B to steal the left-hand side. But even now, I think left-hand side is still relatively small. Compared to other parts of the board, I don't think black should be afraid of this. Okay. And so we have running battle begins, and white covers. This is a very sort of classic move. It's possible. If white can get another move, then white will be looking for a move around A next, so it's important for black to find the timing to make the base, which black does, good, and white is connecting on the top side. From this point, white could leave these exchanges. Now it's not going to be possible for white to cut, really. Maybe white was hoping there'd be something here, but because white has to connect in a spot like this, black is already doing quite okay. From now, white can think about Tanuki, play away in the opposite corner here, and this should be okay for white. It is worth noting, though, that in this shape, there is a bit of a bomb waiting with this black peep at A. So something white's always going to have to think about is what happens if black gets to push and cut through. As of right now, it might be a little bit risky because the black stones here do not yet have a base or eyes, but this is a possibility black will have in the future that white should be aware of. Okay, so white wedges, we get cut and then Atari. This looks like white was thinking about trying to find some timing to come back here. But the problem is black's capture is a sente, and this is why white can't really play this way. White would have to come back and connect in the gote, and then at this point, black is already doing okay. Black could even think about Hane connect here, and this Hane is never anything trouble for black. So as of right now, black has an advantage. Black has gained in the bottom left exchanges due to white's mistake. This A has lost quite a few points. And black is going to be able to prepare this push and cut with B, and black can even find a sente to take C now. Okay, so black encloses. I think this is correct. White blocks. Black gives Atari and then connects. Like this, it's capturing race situation. White recaptured at the corner. When I said earlier black could find a sente, what I was looking at was this exchange, and then white defend, and then black take a sente. Black doesn't have to give away the corner, so black could play this way, for example. And when white blocks, it's still possible for black to come out this way. The left side group is already alive. If white cuts, we have this one. Also can be possible to give Atari one time first and then wedge. If white cuts and captures to make the life black and Hane and escape this way. So black doesn't have to have a total sacrificing here. Black can get these exchanges and then develop the bottom side naturally. So a bit of a loss back for black here. But okay, black got to enclose both corners, so overall game conditions should still be fine. The next important area is going to be the relationship of the two weak groups in the center of the board here. White begins immediately from now by attacking. One thing white could also consider doing would be playing something like this. This move would be in anticipation of black playing some push and cut. Usually, though, it requires a ladder, but in this case, white can peep at 7 and then block. And then it's a question of can black jump cut and kill white at the corner. If white's corner is alive, then this should be working for white. If white doesn't like that result, then of course white can also consider extend here, give up the one stone like this. White can maintain connection to the outside in good shape. So this is one method white could use. Attacking is a little
Chris,
aggressive.
could you show some of the variations around black attaching at F18?
In general or in that specific spot?
Just in this case, I was like
Sure.
reading stuff out in the game, but I couldn't quite find something that worked.
So if black plays like this, the simplest method for white will just be Atari and capture. Like this, you'll be able to live. If black comes in, you have this one. If black connects, you can connect. And it's going to be difficult for black to kill you from the corner, I think.
Okay.
If we're worried about the life and death like that, you can also consider kicking one time first and then pushing and cutting. And then after this one, you can capture this way as well. Black comes in, we can defend like this. These are the simplest variations to handle the life and death. Even
Okay,
in
thanks.
even in the variation that I was showing a second ago with this one, for example, it seems very difficult even if black could try to kill. Black cuts in this case will just extend and make the life that way. And if black clamps, we'll play the Atari, and then at this point we can switch to knight's move. Having made the knight's move exchange, something like this, we can live back in the corner this way as well. So living situation should be acceptable for white. The 7-8 exchange is not going to damage negatively your ability to live. And so it's not really possible for black to cut after one. But great question. So this white move is a little bit overplay if white cannot severely damage the black stones, because the whole time we have to remember that there's this peep cut at A lying in wait. And this white stone doesn't really do much to prevent that from happening. Actually, it's a resource black might even try to use to damage white in the future. For example, black might consider exchanging and coming through, and then trying to use that weakness to get ahead of white in some fashion. Maybe even something like this, and if white has to come back, that lapse in tempo could be really big for black too. Another way black might choose to go is simply try to commit white to capturing the stone on the upper side, and then naturally bend with something like this, where black is getting outside in good shape and threatened to cut on the following step. So for example, if white ignores, we can push. We can see that we've set up, if white blocks, we've set up a cut cleanly. So then white would have to drive, and then black would have the option to continue however black wanted. Some really bad algae in the position for white makes this move really difficult to utilize, I think, effectively. Okay, in this case, black chose to attach in the corner. This attachment is playable, more common when A is at B, because, for example, if we just switch the placement of the stone, when white attempts to come through, black has this coming through move, and after the block, there's the block here. If white cuts, black's extension is a really good choice, because now there's a bit of a trouble. Black has the ability to come back at A and connect underneath, or black has the ability to squeeze through at B. So if white cuts, for example, black has a cut and then Atari, and like this, we've managed to clean through the white group here, connect through the upper side. And if white connected this one somehow, then black could even simply play here. And now we're threatening to capture B7, B17, or connect back. So if block, we can capture and become alive. And if extend, we can simply go underneath. So it's a very common tactic when the white stone is at that placement. We can sort of see how this changes when this one is here. At this point, if the cut happens, it's going to be exactly the same, so no trouble at all with that. White might choose to ignore it. For example, white could think about playing Atari here and giving up the one stone. This is something white might think about, but typically when black pushes, white is probably going to block. This is why another common method for white might be to simply hane from the corner and try to connect to the outside, for example, something like this. Okay, we have cut and then jump cut. And then here there was a peep. Usually peeping the cut is not great. The bulk of the black group is going to be alive. I'm not sure capturing the one stone inside if the corner was going to live was really going to be worth it. Because in this case, black could even consider just squeezing directly. Something like this. And then Atari descend. Normally when white wants to cut, white would prefer this cut to be the working cut, in which case white probably doesn't need to have this move. But okay. Playable, I suppose. Okay, black captured, cut through, push, and then descend. So this one is just trying to remove black's eye space. It's an effective Tesuji for that most of the time. And then this move was, I'm assuming, to prevent against black getting this exchange somehow for free. Black is coming out. Descend was not Sente, so this one's a bit surprising. It has some implications in that later, if black does ever answer, white can go here and try to make an eye. But as of right now, it's a little bit slow. The issue is black has got sort of white has got sort of two weak groups, A and B. And black has only got the one weak group at the moment. So kind of a difficult fighting for white in this situation. Like this, black can even just fly to center, and it should be okay for black. Okay, this one is attacking shape point. Black can consider to even push one more time. If white jumps back and takes the shape point here, it's really no trouble to black. This move can still attack white's eye space quite a bit. This one, white blocked, black wedged. Oh, dangerous. Wondering what black was reading here. If white cuts, black captures 2 stones. Cutting here is not working. So this one should be block. Almost no reason not to block directly. Extending here, we have to be careful because white is hoping to set up the cut now and then recapture the 4 stones. That would be a gaining for white, but of course black can block here. And then black has to step back and cut anyway. Okay. Now here's a kind of overplaying by white. Cutting is possible. Black can actually just Hane. Hane is already good enough. If white cuts and tries to drive all the way up, it's not working. So we don't have to fear 2. And if double Hane, simply we can extend. There's not really a great fix for white on the outside, because even if white builds the shape at the center like this, black eventually can still cut through white. There's things like this jump cut, push and cut. Many different ways to break the bending knight's moves, but the more important detail is that we're sort of surrounding white if white plays this way, and white is kind of self-sabotaging the group in the upper left center. Against Hane, white can really only think about jump. It's important for white to bring this weak group out, and then from that situation, black can consider how to handle the center, whether black wants to try some Atari connect to get out, or whether black wants to try some cut and fight idea. Black can decide from now, but Hane should be okay direction. Okay, push and then cut. So I like this if black can block here, but if black has to extend and sacrifice in the corner, maybe it was too much. I don't think we have to rush to cut. I think cutting is always white's burden here. Probably as black, I want to just drive through somehow, maybe like this, or maybe fix the shape first somehow and then keep pushing out. Because we have 2 different groups we can go after. This one is incredibly weak for white, so that would be the one I would turn my attention to. But okay, white Hanes and then drives through, black captures and white gets the living shape, and then here extending. So going for right side is quite big. Almost anything here for black should be fine. Extending can be okay. But in general too, we have to also keep in mind that this black group is not yet 2 eyes, although it's close. So maybe Tari extend might be slightly more accurate. Hard to say. Extending by itself should be okay too. Normally we want to seal from weaker sides, so black can consider to seal from 1. This would be strengthening 2 stones in the center. The corner group here doesn't really need much help. There might be some annoyances here in the future if white gets something at the right hand side, but as of right now, the corner doesn't really need another stone. So adding 1 stone from the corner to go after the white group is maybe a bit wrong direction. Although, okay, it's going to be Sente, so white's going to have to answer it. But like this, even though black is taking it the right-hand side, white is getting stronger towards the center now by removing liberties against 2 black stones and also escaping. So I think here black is losing something. And then black had to retrade back at the right-hand side. Atari, then connect, then peep. And now it's becoming sort of a bigger fight than it needed to be. Before it was hard to see how white was going to seal black, and then now it seems like white is sealing black in good shape. There's going to be 2 outside moves before black has to capture to free up 2 inside liberties. So black's total liberties right now are 2, 4, 6, 8 liberties total. So all white really needs to do from this point is make sure that all the stones involved have more than 8 liberties, and black is going to potentially be in trouble. At least to the point where black is going to have to come back and capture at A, but then white can potentially throw in at B again. So some extra liberties there too, I suppose, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 11 liberties. It's a very weird situation for black to be in. If we go back, let's see what black could have done different. I think at this point, instead of this, we can Atari and either fix, or Atari and push out, or Atari and peep. One of these ideas will probably be correct, and it's simply going to be keeping this black group out into the center so that we never have to come back and capture, and there's never potential of liberty racing at the left-hand side. As long as it's like this, white will have 3 weak groups. Weak group A, weak group B, weak group C, and the game should be very difficult for white to manage. But because black tried to take the right-hand side and then continue fighting, somehow the game became busy for black. So just for the sake of the time, I have to speed up a little bit. So here black managed to capture back the right-hand side, but white secured the ladder. And then after the ladder capture, this game is looking like it's becoming potentially favorable for white, depending on how this A group goes. Okay, black managed to cut and survive, and the white is gaining some potential at center. And white manages to invade. Yeah. This one went to endgame, right? This one was like nail-bitingly close on 2.5 points. Probably it's still
Yeah, it was a little agonizing. I was in Byoyomi at this point. I actually have a question about the life and death problem on the right-hand side. Whether or not I needed that move at T9.
Okay, let's take a look. If we don't
I was so tempted to nuke there.
If we don't play T9, how does white live? So a simple method, if capture, block, here, it's dead, right?
Right, I was thinking if white Hane is at T13.
Okay. So white can Hane at T13. Let's assume answer. Does it positively impact white's eye space enough? If white connects, it's the same as if white had descended. We throw in, and then this is met with connect, and then this is met with return. If white takes this one, we can throw in. If like this, we simply extend. If white Hane is this way, we assume something like this, maybe here, here. This way could be alive, right? So maybe there's a better way for black than block. If like this, what if black throws in? Right now, capturing race is still 3 versus 2 here. So if throw in, block, connect, can white make a second eye here? This one would just be dead, so white would have to capture. We go here, then white tries to flee. Can white make a second eye? Seems the answer is going to be no. White can try, but even this is not working. So yeah, looks like you probably don't need T9. But I don't think that would be what would lose the game. I think the game was close enough in endgame. It was probably some miscellaneous endgame mistake. But the biggest, I think, black was doing very well by this point. And I think as long as black can find the Atari in the center and the push, or the Atari and the peep, to move out the group in the top left corner while surrounding white's other weak group at A, I think black can do very well here. You can also start from this side and try to see how white's going to live in the small area. Because your corner's alive right now, white getting one more move on the right is not going to make you to have to come back and answer in the corner. And then you'll still have the timing to play something like J12 and then Atari descend in the center. Were there any other questions on this game? And if not, we will move to the next.
Thank you.
Alright, so this one was Pepper 001 versus Zonum. Looks like white won this one in a back and forth, also in the end game.
Review started.
So we'll see how this one happened. Oh wow. I could never expect it. Generally speaking, this is a principle most players, I think, have heard of, but for those that haven't, a move in the corner is worth roughly 7 to 8 points in the opening. A move on the side is worth approximately 5 to 6, and a move in the center is worth usually 4 or less. So if we have the option to play in an empty corner versus the side, we should probably be playing in the empty corner. I cannot recommend black play something like this. Can a professional play and still work against an amateur? Sure, but there's a reason you don't see professionals open like this against each other. Black is sort of handicapping themselves a little bit already. And then black has secured the Sanrense. What this tells me is that black was probably in positions where they would play the double star this way, and white would split down the middle, or approach on the inside, and they couldn't secure the Sanrense. So they play this in the hopes that their opponent will play in the other corner so they can get it. It ends up transposing into a normal opening. So now it's okay for black. If white wants to sort of, I guess, punish this, probably playing at 1 is going to be the better corner to do that. If black takes the third corner at 2, then white can simply treat it as though black played both stars and then played the next move at q10 and go from there. But okay, we transpose back to the Sanrense. The game is relatively even still. White encloses. Black encloses with the Ogema. This is looking towards the center for the influence. That's basically meaning that if white invades the corner, black can simply surround white and have a good shape in Sente. And then with something like this, black's center power is quite good. So moving on, white simply takes the other corner. Generally speaking, against heavy Moyo strategies like this with white, the second corner I will probably enclose high. And the main reason for this one being that oftentimes you want to have the balance of a third line enclosure, fourth line enclosure when handling the opponent's thickness. This one stone will be useful for reducing around this A area in the future. But if we keep our head low, then later black might have the chance to press us down. And then with something like this, or something like this, or maybe even something a little faster like this, it's going to be harder for the white corner to impact this A area in the middle game, because black will sort of have this cover naturally. So one of the benefits of keeping the high stone is that black doesn't really have a natural press against it. This press is going to less likely be Sente because black is at the 5th line coming down to the 4th, and white's base is never in danger here. So white could then, for example, Tanuki and take a big place elsewhere. Okay, black takes the other Ogema, and white checks. This side of the board is really small. Number of spaces you can see is 7. This side of the board, slightly bigger with 8. This side of the board even bigger still than 8, right? We've got 4, 4, 2, so about, is that 10? Yeah, 10. And then there's the whole black influence. So between the 3 sides, white would typically prefer to find a way to develop the left more than white's developing the top or the bottom. One way white could think about doing that would be obviously to play a stone on the left-hand side, although I'm not a huge fan of that. We're sort of getting into this competing Moyo idea where white is saying we both have similar framework, but mine is with 2 Shimaris that are making real points, and yours are with stones that are looking to give away territory for influence. Is it playable? Probably. Is it preferable? Depends on style. Usually as white in this position, I'm going to try to invade somewhere. So you could think about either 3-3, or one of the more common ones would be to play a knight's move check from below or above the black stone. The main idea with this one is that if black kicks you, which is probably the scariest variation, you can simply stretch and then slide to the corner. It's going to be very difficult for white to kill this. And white shouldn't really try to kill this. If white does, black shouldn't try to kill white. If black does, white will usually end up getting more than white's supposed to. If black simply blocks the corner, white's going to be alive. If black comes in like this, then white can play and connect underneath. Either way, white is going to get a living shape, so black should expect white's going to live. This would be a simple one where black could play like this and take Sente, and then come back to here in the game would go on. This one is a little bit slack in the sense that it's not really Sente against black in the corner, and it's sort of a territorial base move on the smallest side of the board, so it's not a move that black is even going to be interested in entertaining and answering, and so black to Nuki. Now for black, I would recommend going a little further. If you want to play on the bottom, you can consider getting entirely in white's face here. If white hanes, we can extend. If white pushes, we can hane below. Now, if white doesn't want to lose the corner, white has to stretch, then we can jump. And then from here, we can extend again. And like this, we've secured a strong position on the bottom, and it's all territory. White has gotten a wall facing the left that's going to allow white to build, and white gets sente. Overall, the game is still relatively even. This is one method black can consider. The most common choice, though, is going to be recognizing that most of white's stones are all very low on this board. And the best way to punish your opponent for playing all on the third line is to find a way to press them from the fourth. So I still think here this will be the best choice for black. If white resists, black can fly to center and get more power. And if white submits with this one, white can take more territory, but black can play this way or even this way and develop the moyo even further. This would be very consistent with black's plan. Okay. White checks and takes territory, black attaches. This is good for developing the center, keeping white low. I like this move. And then white tanuki. So generally when we are attached like this, tanuki is not the first thing we think of. If we were not intending to answer this move, why did we play h3 to begin with? Usually white's going to at least stretch back one time, or maybe try to find some way to get sente from now before tanuki. But to play the one exchange and then leave it here makes not so much sense. We're sort of inviting black to play this hane, which would be allowing black to just gain at the bottom, almost for no reason. It's kind of like if we consider the tawari for a minute, let's say white didn't play there and went here instead, and then black went here. White's probably not playing this one next to give black the hane on top, with no real way to continue the shape. So in situations where we can flip-flop the move order like this and it doesn't make sense to exchange 3 and 4 in the flip-flop variation, probably better that if we play this one to start, we don't ignore it. Otherwise, just don't play it, simply go here. And that method is called Tawari. We can read more about that at Sensei's library. So here black was a little bit kind. Black blocked from the inside position. Playable. But black could have hane from the outside as well. If white extended, black could connect, and white was going to be in trouble here. Not to mention, as long as black is getting a strong shape here, where's my drawing tool? Strong shape here, it's going to be very easy for black to sort of bow and arrow himself a nice stone right here around d8 in the future, because it will be supported by this wall. So if white tries to attack it, black will have friends nearby to support in the fight. So moving on, this one was a bit easier. Normally white is extending. Hane is good for sacrifice, so this says to me that white really wants to Atari in the center if black cuts. White is saying, please cut me, black, I want to Atari you. Black should probably extend and say no to that. If black extends, there's not really a continuation for white. White could push again, black can continue to extend, and honestly this trade is going to be better for black. White is getting territory to the 6th line, 7th line, something like that. We can count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. But black is getting territory, if we look at the other side, up to the 11th. And 11 is greater than 6 by many magnitudes. So these exchanges would not be very good for white. So instead, white probably should just answer one time, or at this point, since white already tanukied and black played the inside block, now might be a good timing for white to forsake the h3 stone and say, okay, if you want to capture a g3, you can have that stone. And then basically what we're claiming is my a stone was sente 3 times. I traded it for 3 black moves, and all black did was increase their territory by 8 points. Which would be true, actually. White's corner is not in danger when black captures. White does lose a little bit of the left-hand potential around d8. There's not going to be many points there. But white did get to play 3 moves elsewhere. And I think that's a good enough reason to throw away the h3 stone. That stone is not contributing to anything else productive at the moment. If that stone were a cutting stone, it would be different, and white might actually consider investing the move. But right now, for white to save it is only really going to be taking away 8 to 9 points from black and giving about 6 points to white. It's kind of like a purely endgame move for white to play it. So black cut, white extended, and then black took the center. Yeah, as we saw, black could do the same thing by extending, and black will have better shape. So this variation should be slightly better for white. White Tanuki, which is also good. This worth noting that this does mean white's 2 stones are dead. However, they are not really important at the moment. These cutting stones are not going to be the biggest thing on the board until endgame. So for white to Tanuki from now is making sense. And pinch is probably the best thing black can be doing with power in the center. Now there are many ways to live here, and I'm not going to go super in depth on them, just because it would take way too long. So I'll kind of skim through the life and death here quickly. We'll see what happens. Okay, so white got cut, push, and then white gets to come out. And now it's looking like it should be quite difficult for white to die. White has secured 1 eye. White has access to the side. White can make another eye in the center. At this point, white is pretty much alive. So black connected here in Gote. Was this move necessary? Probably not. Black could accomplish theoretically the same thing by simply capturing the stone with the knight's move at 1. If white pushes and cuts this way, the 1 stone is dead. The only reason this might be potentially good for white is if something around 8 and connect is actually working to attack black. But at this point, if white is alive, the 4 stones are nothing trouble for black. Black can even give them up later. But as of right now, black could save, and even if white did cut, black could take them. So protecting against white's push through at this point is a bit slow, unless it gives us some continuation against white in terms of life and death. For white now, we should probably move to the right side, break this area. For black, this knight's move is going to be very big. This turn can help set up an eye in the center, but it's a bit slow. From this point, if I'm black on this board, I'm going to go underneath, because even if white does take something like this, for example, and makes the claim, hey, I'm going to get an eye, it's kind of like, okay, good for you, buddy, you can get an eye, and I'm just going to go and take moves that get me territory elsewhere, and so on and so forth. This one, I'm not exactly sure what this was trying to do. It seems maybe black was worried about white playing this point and trying to force something like this against the corner, where white was just going to get all of this grandiose eye space, and it looks very impressive. But actually, all white managed to do is live with a few more points, and black still gets all the edge territory, so this result should still be okay. Black is not losing too many points from white getting this. Granted, white living is always going to be happy for white, but black is not losing the game from this, so I'm not really sure why black is protecting against 05 here. It would at least make sense if black was going to try to do that, to do it with a little more pressure. For example, the peep at 1, which would be actively trying to poke out white's eyeball, basically saying, I have a follow-up at A, you are not alive yet. You should probably fix that. But this one is a little bit slow. White can give up that point and take the side. This one is going to give white a Miai with something around A and something around B. Even if black does come back to take this point, white can just simply block with this at any point to make the eye real. And if black did ignore, white could ignore again, black answer, white ignore again, black answer, white ignore again, black answer. And white's already alive on the merit of just getting to the edge itself, to the point where even if black did get something like 2 and 10, they end up being dame because white was already living. So poking the eye out from here accomplished nothing for black. So white does not have to rush to save this way. And then black takes the key point. So this should be a slight gain for black. This N6 for R8 exchange here. Now at this point, white is alive. So white shouldn't continue locally unless it's the biggest thing on the board for white to do so. At this point, if I was white, I would be considering a couple of things. Maybe reducing. There's a invasion at A and B. White can think about doing. White can also think about growing with a move like C on the left-hand side. This would be trying to suggest, hey, if you Tanuki me, then later I'm going to have things that are really annoying, like this peep and connect, and then maybe this thing, and then maybe even later I can save my 1 stone. Not that saving the 1 stone is particularly impressive, but white's putting this suggestion in black's mind, and maybe black worries about it. The main benefit of it is that it's growing white's already slightly large area and reinforcing it by 1 move and making it harder for black to invade here, which should be to white's benefit. Okay, but instead white is pressing and reducing by Sente first and then invading. That's fine since black answered everything. And here white is alive. Yeah, this is a living shape, and now black is coming to the center. So the main big moyo is already destroyed now, and so next we can just simply count what black is threatening to build here. This potential is worth approximately what I've marked off here. So 10, 20, 5, 6, 7, 8, now almost 30 points. Maybe not quite 30, maybe just about 30. But compared with the rest of the territory that black has, the moyo is not particularly impressive. I think white can stand to gain similar or more from the left side. Now might be a good time for white to consider playing this one, and then eventually in the future coming back to g2. Instead, white defended the top. This is following proverb when cap play knight's move. This is pretty good as well. Black attached, white bumped, Hane, and now white can steal the Sente. Although it's important that in this situation, white actually steals the Sente. If white doesn't steal the Sente, then it makes almost no sense to continue those exchanges up there after the first move was played. Once white has defended with the knight's move and black has answered in white Tanukis, the best that black could really hope for would be this clamp to work. And maybe the clamp does work, but the clamp is not gaining black a lot of territory comparatively. It's maybe a difference of 5 to 7 points from the real game. And white is still going to have a decently solid shape here. So for white to answer, it's only protecting against 7 points. But here, the threat of the reduction is what black was worried about. If black had ignored, white was going to be able to walk in. So black stops that. And then white should have the timing now to come back and play the next big place. Okay. Instead, white is building by force. This was very powerful. Black didn't recognize that the double Atari threat was presiding. If black had wanted to continue, black could play this Atari, white could give this Atari, black could capture, white could capture. And this would be trading. But actually, this trade should be favorable for black because the A stone is weak. And on the white side of things, white can break into black's moyo on the top, but black has no weak stones or weak groups there. So black is breaking white's potential with an attack target, and white is breaking black's potential with no target in sight. So locally speaking, it should be slightly better for black. But instead, black connected the wrong side. And black didn't actually connect, but assuming like something like this, black had connected the wrong side, and now black is going to have to defend again the stones in the center. Which should be here. This would be the next viable choice, or maybe even this knight's move, to try to break in and bridge back around to the h7 group. White gets to cut, capture, 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 connect, and now black is sealed inside. And as long as white doesn't die, I think white is going to be pretty okay here. The strongest move white could play locally would be this one. And it might look like a very weird move, but the idea is very, very simple. You can connect underneath at A, and you're practically connected through with something around B. Even if black wanted to separate, you could always connect under or above. For example, something like this. Black would have to play from this side to guarantee the life. And there's not really a working cut against white's group anymore. Black is dead in the center. And if black tried to separate from this side, then white could even play here. White is, of course, still connected anyway, so white could also strike. This would be the thickest move white could play in good shape that would give white connection to both A and B, and probably end a lot of the struggling for black now. Sort of moving on for the sake of time. If there's no questions about the remainder of this game, it seems like the rest of this is going to be endgame, and white won it quite comfortably, I think 12 points. A lot of that had to do, I think, with black slipping up in the center here and getting the group on the left in some trouble, allowing white to profit quite a bit. White did have a chance to play a little stronger, but that's all right. This will be a technique I'm sure white will remember in the future. And looks like the game is pretty much concluding for now. If there are no further questions, oh, that was painful. Somehow black did not exchange Atari first. Maybe we cover that before we move to next game. This is quite important, actually. We have to give the Atari exchange. If white connects back here, then black connects here, and it's safe either way. But without that, white was able to punish with descend. That was quite a sharp move by white. Good job. Alright. And that will conclude the game between Pepper 001 and Zonum 6Q. We will move to the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Ken. I'm assuming that was your game, and Zonum
Yeah,
is your last name backwards.
That is correct.
Very clever. Well, I hope it was instructive for you.
Yeah.
Of course.
I kind of got lucky at the end that he made that mistake, and that gained me 20 points, which gave me the win.
Yeah, I think overall the beginning was okay for you. I know sometimes it can be tricky when they open the second move on the side like that.
Right. I was completely flummoxed and had no idea what the best response was, so I just did what I normally do and took the other corner.
Yep, that's the best response. This type of move is often self-punishing. All right, so moving to last game, we have Terry Buzzsaw versus Mergeliv, I think that's how that's pronounced, or Mergelive, or something to that effect. If I butchered it, I apologize. Looks like Terry won this game quite convincingly.
Review
So
started.
we'll go ahead and we'll see how that happened. Terry, if you're here, which I think usually you are, feel free to ask questions as they come up.
I'm here.
So this opening is an opening that's also been seen many, many times in the history of Go. It's a very favorited opening of Andy Liu. Normally, we see this type of Shimari played this way in the Orthodox opening. It's a little bit less common in this configuration because we leave the secondary development side open for white to block it on the next step.
This is the opening that In Sung refers to as points lover.
Point lovers, yeah. It's very good for players that like territory. And you notice it gives up a lot of black's development on the top side, right?
Right.
But that's the purpose of it. Generally speaking, it's a very simple opening for players that don't like to deal with big frameworks. Totally fine to play. We would see it a lot in early 2000s, late 90s games. And there was a bit of a rift among the Haidon community in Europe and North America, as well as the pro community, about whether this was as valid as the Orthodox. And I think AI has since put an end to the debate. It's perfectly fine for black because if white spends a move at K17, we're not unhappy. White played their third move of the game on the side of the board, and so we can apply the same logic as black in the last game, where black played their second move on the side of the board. When the opening continues, the placement of K17 might actually be a bit questionable. So in the game, black chose to mimic white and play a move at K4, and so as a result of this, the game stays in balance. Typically speaking, it would be a little bit more common for black to enclose the second corner, something like A. Or
That's what I ordinarily would do.
Yeah. If you play A, it's slightly better for black compared to playing K4, simply because you're not matching a move on the side. You're matching the move on the side with a move in the corner, which is roughly a 2 to 3 points difference. So in terms of like opening move value, right? Which is arguably like not so important over the course of a long game, but as you get stronger, it makes more and more of a difference. Often the hard part about playing a move like this type of side extending move in Gote, is that later in the game it might not be in a good spot. And usually when that happens, when this stone gets spoiled, it's almost -5 points or worse immediately. So just something to be aware of. So here we have Joseki, and now in the Tawari we have to wonder about the placement of the A stone. Now Terry, do you like the position of A on this board?
I don't hate it, but I don't love it either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not wonderful.
Right. If we can imagine for a second, we played B instead, and white came back like this, and played the same Joseki. When we have a low settled stone at 7, we're not usually in a rush to play another stone here at 9. because the low settled group in the corner is already strong and doesn't need the reinforcement. Usually we'd play away, right?
Right.
So in this situation, we would say black is a little bit more efficient compared to the game. And using that kind of analysis, we can look at the post-Joseki and ask ourselves, do we like where A is? And if the answer is no, probably it means we made a bad direction choice somewhere. So back in the day, what pros would do to compensate is they would actually attach from the outside. And when white came in from the corner, something like this, black could consider bumping and extending here. And this was a Joseki that was played. White could defend with this or some such move, and then black would play something here and have a decent shape on the outside. So, I'm not saying that you shouldn't play k4 in the future, but if you decide to go that route again, you can consider this as an option to move forward and stay in good shape. Okay, checking is fine. And then invade. Invading is okay. I don't think it can be wrong. My personal preference would be, at least for most Q players, would be to come back down to f3. Close the bottom skirt just to make sure the k4 stone is less awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And then if white answers, maybe invade the sun next. Okay. And then as for white here, if we want to build the wall, it's usually going to be better to build the wall by extending. This is a small detail. Hane is, of course, okay. But the main difference, just to kind of go over it quickly, and I've talked about it at length before in several other places, a lot of the big difference is the number of liberties of the groups after the cut at A gets exploited. So in this position, if we can imagine something like this, and white Tanuki and black cut, the white group that's the inside group, this group on the corner, has 4 liberties. This outside white group, 4 liberties. The black cutting group, 4 liberties. It's a balanced fight. If we look at the game variation, and we have, let's say, black peep and white Tanuki and cut, well, black and white still have 4 liberties on the outside, right? There's white's 4, black's 4. But the inside white 2 stones only have 3. So white is at a slight disadvantage in this cutting variation compared to the other one. It's 1 liberty less. And so this can make a difference if we're not careful in the fighting. And so usually the consensus is if you're going to build the wall, it's still better to have the 3 in a row wall than the 2 in a row wall. But given that white has a low stone on the top, white might even consider trading back for the corner here. It's not going to mean that the top side is white's territory, but it could mean that trading for the corner could be a decent direction. Another thing white might consider is trading it from now even. And switching back this way and saying, okay, if black wants to attack from here, I can play this 13 point, which might be a bit annoying for black. It's sort of like as we're running, we're attacking. And if black doesn't play it, like let's say black plays, I don't know, just push and exchange and then jump, we can comfortably make the base. So this direction could also be good for white. And so sort of moving on for the sake of time. Here, against the shoulder hit, I'm not sure that this is ever a move. I would have thought a misclick if I had been watching the game. Generally speaking, it's probably going to be A or B. If you're worried about connection as white, you can block. And if white is worried about power, white can push. This would be trying to use the wall offensively against the black reduction stone. But this one is just going to allow black to block in good shape. Now there's an exposed weak point underneath white's belly at A. And even if white jumps, it's overall going to be less powerful, as black is going to have things like this peep and jump. And then eventually there's even going to be things like this 1-space or 2-space jump or large knight's move that black can use to settle the top group cleanly. Okay. This Hane Connect idea by white is trying to scoop underneath the black 2 stones and leave them without a base. I like this idea. Typically black is playing Atari, Terry, because even after white connects, you're alive. So let's imagine for a second throw in capture Atari, at any point you can just go here. So because you have this inside move in this shape, once you've blocked at b18, this move at 7 is always living. So the benefit of having Atari overextend is that we don't have the wasted inside move. If white tanukis, we have a follow-up with our capture. Versus this one, where the follow-up for tanuki for black would have to be Atari anyway. And then why did we ever connect an A? It's kind of like, almost like a wasted move, right?
Yeah.
But okay, white answered. So when white answers, it can't be so bad. But what white probably should have done in this case was push and just connect through underneath. If black had jumped and white had extended, black could play the knight's move like this. But because white is already connected on the top side, white could consider to play something like this and allow a cut. And this would be sort of like the fighting variation where white is saying, okay, I've got a group at c15 and you've got a group at d15. I think your group is weaker and mine is stronger. We're going to fight about it. And then white's got the high stone at A, black's got the high stone at B, and depending on what tactics happen in the bottom right corner, you know, the fight is going to go one way or another. But when white doesn't and black gets to counterattack, white's shape is beginning to be a bit fragile. This A point is going to continue to be a key point until somebody takes it. White takes it. Black makes the flagpole. This is good for stability. I like this move. Very solid. Black can choose to go after this one to be a little more active, but it's a bit harder to handle. Anytime we leave cuts behind, it's a bit more difficult to handle. So I like that. And I like that you did not bother saving the one stone. You said that there's not much of a future, so I'm just going to keep building my eye space. That was very good. And now black is alive. So once the dust settled, if we start sort of in our head quickly counting territory, black is already beyond 30 points. Probably closer to 40, 45, 50. And white is less than 20 points currently at the moment. So already black has quite a big lead in territory. White is going to need to find a way to catch up. Moves that white can think about in the future to do that would be probing at A or B to try to get something out of black's corner. Or maybe through the course of bothering black's C-stone somehow, we can generate some value in the center. But as long as black is conscious of where the weak groups are and where the territory can come from, black can probably navigate this to a win. And here black is destroying the rest of the left-hand side potential, connecting back through the center. And it's just looking like at this point we're moving towards endgame already. It's only move 70. But black doesn't have any weak groups. White doesn't have any weak groups, and the territories are pretty much set. If regular endgame plays out from now, black is going to win. So unless white does something, you know, specifically powerful, we can expect that this game is pretty much over. So all black has to do is avoid complications and match the territory that white is trying to make. You got two really big endgames here, which was good. Also, this was quite large. And yeah, I don't really think there's much to talk about. The rest of the game is pretty straightforward. It's just closing out the game and endgame.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, good job, Terry. Your endgame
Thank
is
you.
quite impeccable for the skill level.
Thank you very much.
It's always pleasant to see, you know, players whose endgame is looking better than mine was looking, you know, 2 years ago.
I've paid a lot of attention to endgame.
Yeah, it's a good skill to have. I know many Don players, you know, myself included at one point, that didn't, and it loses a bunch of games when you don't. So, all right. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. If there's any other questions, you guys please feel free to find the video on YouTube after this and leave them in the comment section. I'll try to get to them when I can.